Hey, I'm Brad Strassman, and I'm an insurance agent, and I'm here to talk to you guys about insurance.
Kiel Ecimovic over here to talk about mortgages and how we can bridge these two pieces of the industry together. Because obviously we work together quite a bit, to say the least.
Absolutely. Try to. And I mean, as you've noticed, things have been kind of a mess lately. Rates are going up for insurance, guidelines are getting tighter, we've got fewer companies. So, we're having to get more inspections done, and this stuff is all kind of a pain, but it's just part of the deal now.
So I'm glad you brought that up because this is exactly what I want to talk about. I'm on the finance side. People are always wondering, how can I lower my costs? Rates are a little bit higher for, let's say, interest rates. Taxes might be a little bit higher depending on where you're getting the house at. How can I lower my monthly costs? Okay, what can I do as a homeowner, someone buying a house, to bring down my insurance costs? There's probably only so much I can do, but what would you recommend?
So first thing you got to do is get a wind mitigation. This tells the insurance company how your roof is attached to the house. So it tells them how the walls, how the roof is attached to the walls, how the decking is attached to the trusses, and then what kind of shingles are on top. Because if the house is over 2001, they assume a worst case scenario, and ultimately your rates are terrible. So you've got to tell them, look, we had a new roof in 2021, and it's all up to building code, and we've got straps or we've got clips, and the nails are 6 inches apart, and that makes a huge difference. It'll cut your premium almost in half. It's like 47%.
Now let's say I have a wind mitt done, and I'm still not happy with the cost that I'm paying for homeowners insurance. Maybe I want to bring down my monthly, mortgage costs, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
What else can I do? Maybe you put on a new roof, but what else would you recommend?
Bump the deductibles up. What we're seeing now a lot of times is carriers are, the standard for the last 20 years has been $1,000 all other peril, 2% hurricane. So 2% of the structure. So if it's a $100,000 home, 2% is $2,000 deductible. Now we're seeing a lot of 5,000, 5%. That is kind of becoming the new norm. I've got 2 companies now where they will only do $5,000 all other peril, 5% hurricane. That's it. The other thing, drop water damage. If you drop water damage coverage or water damage excluded, I've got some companies where it's less than half because water damage is the #1 loss. If you exclude it, policy's a lot cheaper. And these aren't things that are great, but this is what we're having to do to bring the cost down.
Now, when you say water damage, do you mean like a leaking roof or flooding waters or like a leaking pipe?
So leaking pipes, leaky roof, both of those. Now, if the roof gets blown off in a hurricane and it rains into the house, that's covered through proximate cause because the main cause of the damage was the hurricane. So ultimately, that kind of water damage is going to be covered. Or same thing, like let's say the house burns down and the firemen have to come in and they have to put the fire out. That kind of water damage is going to be covered because the main cause of loss was fire.
Okay.
But otherwise, leaky pipes, leaky roof, that stuff is, going to be excluded, or you can exclude it. The other thing is do limited water damage, $10,000 coverage. So, and that brings the price down.
So maybe you have your house replumbed.
Yeah.
Maybe you can reduce the water damage aspect because now you're only worried about a hurricane or maybe a fire at that point.
Absolutely.
Okay. That's what I was getting to. Is like, what are things I can do to my house to try to get those costs down or maybe to eliminate coverages?
Oh yeah. New water heaters. A lot of companies have gone to 15 years and newer on water heaters. Otherwise, they won't even look at the house.
I've seen that. So would it help if you had, let's say, a tankless water heater on the exterior of your house versus having it within your house?
Yeah.
Old school style?
Yeah. So if the water heater's on the outside or in the garage, there's actually a rating factor where it's cheaper.
Okay.
If it's in the living area, it's more expensive. If it's in the living area on the second floor, it's more expensive.
Okay.
It's not all carriers, but I know of one specifically that does that.
Does it make a difference if it's gas or electric when it comes to the water heater? Just out of curiosity, if it's within the house?
No. Either or, they're both good. Gas is probably going to be better just for hotter water quicker.
True.
But otherwise, that they're all the same, in the eyes of the insurance company at least.
Now, I can't help but piggyback off everything you just said. What about electrical? I know there's federal specific boxes you need to look out for, but let's say you're worried maybe about an electrical fire, but if you had everything just redone wiring wise, then you could probably reduce the Is there fire coverage that can be affected when it comes to these?
Some companies, if the house is more than 40 years old, I know one company, they won't look at a house if the wiring's over 20. Even if the house is newer. So like we just had one where the house was done in 2001. This is to me a new house.
Pretty new, yeah.
They wouldn't look at it because it had original electrical. And I mean, this is not an old house to me, but 2001 house was out because it's more than 20 years old and the electrical hadn't been updated.
Interesting.
It's crazy.
So they put it on the same level as like 1973 house.
Yeah.
Funny.
Yeah. I mean, had to go Citizens. And that's kind of the number one now. I mean, this Citizens used to be the last resort. I mean, I think that's their like little slogan is like the carrier of last resort. I'm not kidding.
Now they're front of line.
Yeah, it's like first choice. I mean, really, that's just kind of where you have to go now. It's either that or exclude water damage on an actual cash value policy.
So let's say you have a Citizens policy and I don't know, let's say a frontline policy as an example.
Yeah.
Like Citizens, is that usually like 30%, 40% cheaper than everyone else? Like what's,
it can
if
be.
you had a ballpark it.
I mean, Citizens can be a lot cheaper. Definitely, 30, 40. I mean, to get into Citizens, you've got to be 20% less than anyone is offering. So, if Citizens is, if you've got someone coming in at $1,000 for homeowners, the Citizens policy has to be $800 or less.
Okay.
Otherwise, you don't qualify.
I've heard people complaining about Citizens saying like, oh man, you don't want to deal with them. They won't cover this, that, the other. Is that true?
I mean, the big issue with Citizens basically is they were the carrier of last resort. They were maybe originally supposed to have 100,000 customers max. They're up to 1.7 million last time I checked. So the other thing is they can hit you with a 45% assessment at any time.
A 45% assessment?
Yeah.
Could you explain?
Basically, like let's say you're living life, everything's good up in Longwood, and Miami gets wiped out by a Category 5 hurricane, and it doesn't even rain up here. You're fine. You're at the beach, and it taps out Citizens Reserves. They can come to you and say, we need 45% of your premium within 30 days. And that's just the way it goes.
Just to try to keep the system solvent.
Yeah. But I mean, I don't even know that that's going to keep them solvent, like realistically. I mean, they've taken on so much risk. It's crazy. I mean, but that's just kind of where we're having to go now. I mean, there are, no other options. So.
Are any new carriers coming into the state? I've heard that some have, but I just don't know how competitive they are.
I haven't seen many. I know that we broker one of the newer carriers, Slide. They picked up St. John's.
Okay.
And they're pretty good. Frontline is actually next door to us. They're over in the next building.
Oh, really?
So yeah, their corporate headquarters is right there.
Interesting.
So,
I didn't know that.
Yeah, they're pretty big. They're still going strong. They're doing a lot of condo associations. And I mean, a lot of companies that traditionally were, kind of the go-to are either closed or they're not accepting policies. And I was hoping things were going to get a little softer, but beginning of this month, Universal North America, who's one of 2 or 3 companies that we have in the state that's AM Best rated, just raised their minimum from 2011 to 2020. So they really tightened guidelines.
What do you mean from 2011
the
to
minimum.
20?
So basically, they won't insure before the minimum age that they would, the maximum age, I guess, was 2011 and newer, and they just moved to 2020 and newer for homes. So they really, really tighten their guidelines.
Has anything actually changed with the home construction or condo construction in, let's say, the last 20 years or 10 years that would warrant such a change, or is it just a risk?
Just a risk. Newer homes have fewer problems, and they the other reason that I think this is not written down anywhere, but the way that Citizens works is they're like a clearinghouse. So, and they know everyone's rates, they know everyone's guidelines because they're at the state. So if a house qualifies for a policy with Citizens, Citizens automatically offloads it and the company has to take it. So a lot of companies, I think this is just my guess, are making their guidelines tighter so that they don't have to take on Citizens policies.
Gotcha.
They're all trying to reduce risk. and they're doing
As
exposure
citizens
management.
expands on theirs.
Yeah, and they don't want to have, policies just kind of thrown out to them from citizens, because they're very carefully going through zip code by zip code and trying to,
I heard
prune the
about
book.
that.
Yeah. But I mean, that's, it works. And I'm seeing a lot more personal homes that have metal roofs on them just because they last longer. The cost is about even with shingles now. And,
Really?
yeah. And, insurance companies, from what I understand, have been willing to let you go over to a metal roof even if you had shingle. The issue most of the time, in Florida, you get a lot of homeowners associations, and the homeowner, the HOA may say, well, you gotta have tile roofs, or, you gotta have a shingle roof in this color.
We're trying to have the Spanish architecture, now you have
Right.
a metal roof.
Yeah. So, a lot of times that's like a limiting factor, but, if you're not in an HOA, metal roofs are definitely a good option.
Okay.
So, it's anything to bring the cost down. Really, that's one of the things that definitely is going to help. And yeah, that's what we're looking at. It's a mess. I'm hoping that things improve. But right now, Citizens is kind of the go-to even for commercial.
Really?
Yeah, we're doing a lot of commercial, condo associations, apartment complexes, and commercial non-residential. So we just worked on a furniture store and a strip mall like grocery store. And they're a lot, because the options now